everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Multnomah County Commissioners. The health and safety of our community and staff members are at the forefront of our minds as we continue to navigate county business in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. In accordance with the declaration of emergency announced on March 11th and extended by the Board of County Commissioners on September 24th, today's meeting is being held virtually. To align with physical distancing guidelines, some rules associated with Board of County Commissioner meetings will be temporarily altered. Please remember to mute your mic when you are not speaking, and when you're presenting, make sure to unmute your mic and check to see that your camera is on. We have no items on the consent agenda today.
Chair, we did not receive any non-agenda public testimony today. R1.
All right.
Resolution scheduling a public hearing and directing notice thereof for the consideration of the legalization of a portion of Northwest Rocky Road, Point Road, County Road 445.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson moves, Commissioner Stegman seconds approval of R1, and I vote that we rename it Rocky Road because I love that ice cream. All right, who's up?
Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. I'm the Director of the Transportation Division in the Department of Community Services. And this morning we have the second of three board actions regarding the legalization of a section of Northwest Rocky Point Road in West Multnomah County. This road was physically realigned years and years ago, but the legal description was never brought into accord or with the physical realignment. So the action that we're in the process of is bringing that legal description into accord with the physical alignment of the road on the ground. The attachment to the resolution or is the surveyor's proposed revised legal description. And this morning we're asking the board to set a hearing, which will be the third meeting regarding this action for December 10th, 2020. If the board approves this morning, we will provide appropriate notice to property owners abutting the area under consideration in accordance with Oregon law. And there are no structures or anything in the roadway nearby. Both sides are timberland, so should have minimal impact on the abutting property owners. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Chair Kafori, I think you're muted.
Well, that would be hard for you to hear what I'm saying if I'm muted, so we will try that one more time. Now we will go through commissioners to see if anyone has questions or comments, and we will start with Commissioner Myron.
I have no questions nor comments. Thank you, Ian.
Commissioner Jayapal.
No questions. Thank you, Ian.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
No questions. Thanks, Ian.
And Commissioner Stegman.
No questions. Thank you, Ian.
And I don't have any questions or comments either, except to say thank you, Ian. Marina, would you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafori?
Aye. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Our notice of intent to submit a grant application to Health Resources and Services Administration for up to $4,222,179.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson moves. Commissioner Jayapal seconds. Approval of R2. Good morning, Allison.
Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. Good to see you all virtually. It's been a while. So Amanda and I are here to seek approval of the notice of intent to apply for our annual Ryan White Part A grant. As a reminder, this funding stream provides services for our local HIV care continuum and includes our service area of Multnomah and then 5 surrounding counties. So Clackamas, Washington, Columbia, Yamhill, and Clark County, Washington. Like I said, we apply for this every year. This is the 27th year of receiving these funds, and they have actually told us that we won't have to apply yearly after this year. So we won't have to come talk to you for another couple of years. And just for some context, this is one of several Ryan White parts that we receive money for. The other going to our HIV primary care clinic in integrated clinical services. So I'm going to let Amanda introduce herself and take it from here.
Great. Thank you, Allison. My name is Amanda Hurley. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the manager of HIV grant administration and planning. And I just got my 5-year of service mug in the mail, so I thought I would show that off today in the camera. So, and I also want to say thank you to Chair Kaforid for joining the Planning Council meeting earlier this year when we were meeting in person and not virtually. So the HIV Services Planning Council is responsible for establishing priorities and making allocation decisions for this grant request. And this year has been extremely challenging because we've had to move to virtual meetings and because we've had to address a lot of changes throughout the community. The HIV grant administration and planning staff tried to address any technology barriers to ensure that the voices and experiences of people living with HIV were centered in decision making. The Planning Council adjusted priorities as needs shifted to address the impacts of COVID-19 while balancing the priorities of treatment and support services that have always existed. With the Ryan White funds and CARES Act funding, the Planning Council prioritized access to housing, medical motels, food and emergency financial assistance, and personal protective equipment and supplies for providers. Even with the physical distancing measures, most services are still being offered in some capacity. We've seen a growing need for Ryan White funding more than ever to combat isolation and loss of employment and address the growing health disparities. And with this grant request, over 85% of the funding received will go towards direct services for people living with HIV. We do pass those funds on to community-based organizations as well as to some internal programs such as the Multnomah County HIV Health Services Center and the Behavioral Health Division. We also continue to collaborate with the Oregon Health Authority's Part B program and NHIV Oregon campaign. The state's committed additional resources to treatment and support, specifically for housing. With the additional Part B funding, the Part A grant is able to leverage additional services such as assistance gaining access to mental health and substance use disorder treatment through peer support and addictions benefits coordination. We also assist with paying for medical and dental care for people that are uninsured or underinsured, and provide other supports to meet basic needs, such as case management, service navigation, access to food, and housing. The overarching goal of the Ryan White Grant is to promote better health outcomes for people living with HIV and prevent new HIV infections. Our services link people to care and help them remain in care, ultimately leading towards viral suppression. And viral suppression is a low count of the number of copies of the HIV virus. If someone is virally suppressed, HIV transmission is very unlikely to occur. Overall, the Ryan White population of people living with HIV in the Portland metro area has a high viral suppression rate of 90% compared to the national average of 63%. With the ever-changing health landscape, we have to maintain successful programs while implementing new effective programs, such as the Rapid Antiretroviral Therapy Program at the Multnomah County HIV Clinic, to meet the needs of the 10% that are not virally suppressed. Ryan White services in collaboration with other systems of care are essential to ending new HIV infections in Oregon. We thank you for your continued support of this program, in addition to other programs that address health disparities, such as affordable housing and needle exchange. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, Allison. Marina, did we receive any public testimony on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I will now call on commissioners by district to see who has questions or comments. This time we will start with Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. No questions. Thank you, Amanda and Allison. 90% suppression rate. That is incredible. So just a big thank you to your team and both of you for the incredible work that you provide to the community. Thank you.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Allison and Amanda, for presenting this. This is one that always warms my heart because I know that this money does such good in our community, and you can tell by the rate that Commissioner Stegman just referred, 90% suppression rate, that we are using this money really well. So just appreciate all the work that you do and so many folks at Multnomah County on this. Thank you.
Commissioner Jayapal.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to echo the thanks. This is such important funding for such important services. Thank you so much to both of you and the whole team for this work.
And Commissioner Myron.
Ditto, ditto, ditto. Thank you so much to Allison and Amanda. It really is incredible, profound work, and just deeply appreciate it.
I would also like to thank you for your work, and it is really nice to see both of you this morning. Unfortunately, not in person, but this is better than nothing. So appreciate you and the work you're doing. And the board clerk will now take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Corey?
That is an enthusiastic aye. Wow.
The NOI is approved.
R3, retroactive bud modification NOND 1120 increases FY 2020 appropriation for East County City BIT payments by $189,917.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Stegman moves. Commissioner Vega-Peterson seconds. Approval of R3. Morning, Jeff Renfro.
Good morning, everyone. For the record, I'm Jeff Renfro from the Budget Office. This is not nearly as heartwarming. This is a sort of purely technical thing we need to take care of. So this is a retroactive bud mod that changes the appropriation for our East County City BIT payments going back to FY20. Under normal circumstances, we are not allowed to do a retroactive bud mod. There is one exception, and that is if we have an IGA with some other jurisdiction that says we're going to collect revenue on their behalf and pass it through to them. We're not allowed to hold on to that money. In this case, the issue here is our BIT fiscal year is a little bit off from our normal fiscal year. It runs from September through August. Normally, the collections in July and August are sort of an afterthought, but because the BIT filing deadline was pushed back to July, we actually collected a pretty significant amount of revenue in July and August, which was all booked back to fiscal year 20. So we're asking to increase the appropriation by just under $190,000. A few things to note here. This is implicitly good news. It suggests that our BAT collections were a little bit higher than what we were expecting, which is true. This has no impact on the amount of money that the county gets, has no impact on the amount of revenue that we pass through to the East County cities. It has nothing to do with the ongoing discussions around updating the East County City IGA. This is purely just a technical fix so that we don't get in trouble. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Technical fix so we don't get in trouble. Great. Not heartwarming. Technical fix. Marina, did we receive any public testimony on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. I will call on commissioners by district to see who has questions or comments. Commissioner Myron.
I think it's really heartwarming, Jeff. Thank you. No questions or comments.
Commissioner Jayapal.
No questions or comments. Thank you, Jeff.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
I agree with Commissioner Myron. Multi-jurisdictional collaboration is always heartwarming. Thank you.
And Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think those three cities may beg to differ. And Jeff, I would appreciate, and you don't have to get it to me right now, but a breakdown of what amount of money each city is going to be getting.
Just this additional little bit, or what they received for the entire year?
No, just what's the breakdown of the 189,000? Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send that.
great, thank you.
All right, Marina, would you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Myron,
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal,
Aye.
Commissioner Vega Peterson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman,
Aye.
Chair Kafori.
Aye. The budget is approved.
R4, budget modification overall 00121, appropriating 1.5 million from the CJC for preparing for and responding to COVID-19.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Vega Peterson moves. Commissioner Jayapal seconds. Approval of R4. Morning, Abby.
Good morning, Chair Kafori, Commissioners. It's lovely to see you here in this forum again. And I will take just a few minutes to do a brief overview of this budget modification, which provided the opportunity for our jurisdiction to apply to the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission to receive some CARES dollars to help us offset the costs of moving remotely for the criminal justice system. Just as a heads up, we do have the agencies who will be receiving these dollars here present today. If you have specific questions about how those dollars will be used, then I'll go ahead and do an overview of how we came to these decisions in order to get the budget modification moving. Before I do that, I do want to thank Sherry Campbell and Althea Gregory, both from Government Relations and the Budget Office, for their help shepherding this pretty complicated process forward. So like all things that the local public safety coordinating council does, I failed to introduce myself. Abby Stamp, Executive Director of the Multnomah County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. We coordinate and we collaborate. And like all of the projects we tackle, this was another one of those. And so we had several meetings with all of the executive and elected to lead all of the criminal systems in order to figure out the best way to apply for and then spend these dollars to keep those in our community, those who work in the system and those clients of the systems as well, safe and free from COVID-19 whenever possible. So this is a budget modification to appropriate $1.475 million of these coronavirus funds that came through the federal government down to the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission. And so in response to that opportunity, I convened several meetings with Sherry's support in order to figure out how we would prioritize a community-wide ask. And so what you see in the budget modification documents is about $559,000 for the Sheriff's Office, $300,000 for the Department of County Human Services, which will provide housing for victims of domestic violence, $203,000 to the Department of Community Justice, an additional $145,000, which would be passed through with the DCJ contract to the Metropolitan Public Defenders, $135,000 for the District Attorney's Office, $132,000 for Corrections Health in the Health Department, and then other funds for internal service needs for DCA and DCM. And the prioritization process was pretty robust. We did want to get a lot more money than we ultimately applied for, but we knew the pot was small, and so we needed to have a reasonable ask of the state in order to be able to get a positive yes answer. The prioritization discussion really went about how do we keep the criminal justice system moving? How do we keep the criminal justice system small? How do we keep the jail numbers low? They've been hovering at about 60% of capacity in order to keep adults in custody safe and keep our staff safe. The other discussions actually circled around the other big facility that is important in keeping the justice system moving, and that is the courthouse. So that's why you're seeing requests for laptops and other ways for attorneys to be able to work remotely, and for probation officers to be safe, and for ways to ensure social distancing, cleanliness, and ways to continue to move forward, but also in the remote space. So that is a general overview of the budget modification. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me or any of the representatives from the agencies who will be recipients of these dollars.
Thank you, Abby Stamp from the Local Public Safety Coordinating Council. Marina, did we receive any public testimony on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, well, I will call on commissioners by district to see who has questions or comments, and we will start this time with Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Abby. No questions. I appreciate your thoughtful approach of prioritizing which departments receive this money, and so appreciate your work as always.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
No questions. I just, I think it's great that we're getting these dollars to help support the public safety and criminal justice work across so many different departments at the county. It's really good news. Thanks.
Commissioner Jayapal?
No questions. Thank you for shepherding this, Abby and team.
And Commissioner Myron?
No questions. Thank you, Abby.
Thanks, Abby. Appreciate it. Appreciate Sherry and other folks who helped with this as well. And as always, we appreciate and we'll put to good use the $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Marina, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafori?
Aye. The Bud Mod is approved.
R5, continued hearing on application for an exemption to statewide planning goal 3, agricultural lands, and an amendment to the Multnomah County Comprehensive Plan and Multnomah County Comprehensive Plan and zoning map to rezone the property located at 2326 Southeast Troutdale Road in East Rural Multnomah County from exclusive farm use, EFU, to rural residential RR.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson moves. Commissioner Myron seconds. Approval of R5. At last week's board meeting, we held a public hearing on case number T4-2019-12624, which is an application for a statewide planning goal 3 exception and an amendment to the Multnomah County Comprehensive Plan and associated map to rezone property located at 2326 Southeast Troutdale Road and an adjacent portion of Southeast Troutdale Road from exclusive farm use to rural residential. We continue that hearing today, and we left the record open for any additional evidence, argument, or testimony, as well as any request to leave the record open for an additional 7 days to respond to that new information. Have we received any additional evidence, argument, or testimony?
Good morning, Chair Kafori.
Good morning.
We have not received any additional testimony. And for the record, I am Kevin Cook, Senior Planner with the Department of Community Services. I use he, him pronouns. Just a quick recap on this, this proposal. This is a continued hearing on the proposed zone change. It's a 0.93 acre property. It's located on the southeast side of the east side of Southeast Troutdale Road. And that is south of the Troutdale city limit. The location is the site of a historic schoolhouse building in Cahill. The proposal before you today is for a zone change from exclusive farm use to rural residential and for the associated exception to statewide planning goal 3, which is agricultural lands. And so that's it in brief, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. We will now close the record to everyone other than the applicant. And I will go through and call commissioners by district to see if the board has any questions for the staff or for the applicant. We'll start with Commissioner Myron.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jayapal.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. How about Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
No questions. Thanks, Kevin.
And Commissioner Stegman.
No questions. Thank you, Kevin.
State law allows the applicant 7 days after the record is closed to all other parties to submit final written arguments in support of the application unless waived by the applicant. Does the applicant want to submit a final written argument?
Rich, it looks like you're muted.
Okay, let's try that again. This is Rich Faith representing the applicant, and no, we have no desire to continue this any further or have any additional comment to make.
Thank you. So we will now close the record and public hearing and begin deliberations. I will now walk us through each question that needs to be answered and ask each of you to state your view in response to those questions. After we deliberate, I will ask for a motion that reflects our decisions. The first question is, has the applicant demonstrated that all of the standards of approval are met? As part of that question, we should address the findings in the staff report, specifically, 1, do we need to see any additional evidence, or is there substantial evidence to support the staff's findings? And 2, do any findings in the staff report need to be modified? Do we now go through and call on the commissioners by district to have them answer these questions verbally?
Chair, this is Catherine Thomas from the County Attorney's Office. Yes, that would be sort of the simplest way to go through it, is just answer really that first question of whether the applicant has demonstrated that all its standards are met. And if any commissioner wants to speak specifically to the evidence or the findings in the staff report, they can do that as part of their comments.
Thank you. And I just want to remind folks that this is good practice for us, as this is the first one of these we've done, but I have been told that there will be more coming. So we will be pros by the time we're done with this one. All right, so I'm going to call on commissioners to see if to have each commissioner answer the question of has the applicant demonstrated that all of the standards of approval are met, and to see if you have any questions on this. We're going to start with Commissioner Myron.
Thank you. I have no questions, and I believe that all the standards have been met.
Commissioner Jayapal.
Yes, I believe the standards have been met.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Yes, I believe the applicant has met all the standards of approval. Thank you.
And Commissioner Stegman.
Yes, I agree. The applicant has demonstrated the standards have been met.
Thank you. And I will also agree that the applicant has demonstrated that the standards of approval have been met. So given that we all agree that the findings in the staff report demonstrate that the standards of approval have been met, we will now move on to the second question. The second question is, do we agree with the proposed text and map amendment to the comprehensive plan? So I'm going to go through and call on commissioners again. This time we'll start with Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree. The proposed text and map amendments are satisfied.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
I also agree that the text and map is satisfactory. Thank you.
Commissioner Jayapal.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. Yes, agreed that the text and map are satisfactory.
And Commissioner Myron.
I agree. Text and map are satisfactory.
All right, and I will agree as well. So now it sounds like we have approval on the second question from all the commissioners. So I will now entertain a motion to adopt the draft order provided by the staff.
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Stegman moves, Commissioner Myron seconds approval to adopt the draft order provided by staff. The board clerk will now take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafori?
Aye. The land use application is approved and the comprehensive plan and associated map will be amended. The board's written order will be entered and will serve as the final act by the county on this matter. Any persons who appear before the Planning Commission or board in person or in writing may appeal our decision to the Land Use Board of Appeals within 21 days of mailing the board's order. And that concludes R5.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
R6, proclaiming October 2020 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in Multnomah County, Oregon.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Vega Peterson moves. Commissioner Stegman seconds. Approval of R6. Good morning.
I think I am. So good morning, Chair Kafori, Commissioners. I'm Ben Duncan. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Chief Diversity and Equity Officer for Multnomah County. And it's my pleasure and privilege to be able to say a few words before passing on some amazing colleagues who are doing incredible work and whose experiences and wisdom inspires me and our work together. So today we're recognizing National Disability Employment Awareness Month, which is really about celebration. Right? It's a chance for us to lift up and recognize the brilliance, ingenuity, creativity, and contributions that employees with disabilities bring to our workplace every day. And while we as an organization have openly acknowledged that we have a long way to go to build a workplace that truly honors and values and creates safety, trust, and belonging for these employees, we'll hear today how our colleagues are not only challenging us to be better, but are leading efforts to ensure that we are. And while you'll hear from a few panelists today, I'd be remiss if I didn't lift up Ashley Carroll in the Office of Diversity and Equity. Her position was a result of advocacy and research done in partnership with the IDEA Employee Resource Group. And Ashley is bringing stakeholders together to address issues and improve practice for employee accommodations, and has created a work group that's bringing practitioners together to share ADA-related knowledge within the county. So I appreciate the incredible leadership of everyone that you'll hear from today, and of course this board who have invested in building structures and systems that will make our workplace better for everyone. So with that, thank you, and I'll pass it now to Charmaine Kinney.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. So my name is Charmaine Kinney, and she, her, hers, and I work for DCHS Long-Term Services and Supports as a modernization leader. Primarily focusing on quality improvement. I'm impacted by intergenerational addiction, depression, and anxiety, and attention deficit disorder and learning disabilities all my life. And it's been, not that I have all of those, I have 3 of those. I have, next month I'll have 40 years of recovery for addiction. And during that time I've been, dealing with ongoing major depression and anxiety. I've also had PTSD from former DV situations. That has been dealt with. That part has been resolved, but I do have ongoing issues around depression and anxiety that I've never had to really disclose because I've been able to really manage those symptoms. I chose this picture because this is really displays, this is my family. And this displays, when I look at this, 4 of these kids have had IEPs, for learning disabilities, one of them around behavioral issues, and having mental health issues. One of them two of them I'm currently raising. So it runs the gamut of learning disabilities, of anxiety, depression, and addiction. That we have 3 active addicts in this picture. But that doesn't mean that they're not part of the family. That means that we surround them with whatever support they need to be as functional as they can, and to create some barriers to protect others in our community, our little bubble, which is obviously not little. We have this huge bubble, and it includes, so much complexity. It's very intersectional. It's been impacted by systemic racism, trauma, and age, and that different kind of support system that I needed, I created within the work setting. I created what I need to be successful. And I created the tools that I need, or used tools that were available. Now, the 2020 has put on a whole new layer, of complexities that definitely has increased symptoms, for many, many people. So I have come to a point where whoa, I need to create some new things, because what was happening is not working now. And so when you're in a workplace environment, you feel, especially when you have these type of disabilities that are so highly stigmatized, that you hide it because of the stigma. So sometimes you have to create things that are invisible, which means that sometimes you don't get what you need. And I think that this year was a great example of that. And I've have to put myself in a place of saying, I can't do that anymore. I need to let people know this is what's going on. This is why. And this is what I need for some temporary accommodations so that I can be successful. And so I continue to do that and to be courageous, and have the strength to be able to ask for what I need. And I think that these opportunities, when I look at my family here, and I look at one of my children that I know that when she went into high school, read at a 3rd grade level. She's one of the most successful of my children. Own house, has a consistent job, and versus one of the most intelligent, great poet, great artist, who we have to support constantly. So what of our addictions is going to impact our life, really depends on that support that we have around us and being able to work at our highest functionalities. That's going to be very different for a lot of different people. So thank you, Ben. I appreciate this opportunity. And thank you, commissioners, for being able to come here and just expressing, some of the realities of what it's like to be living with particularly an invisible disability, and that impacts every area of your life, especially as you age, some of those things, just add, to new things, diabetes and those type of things, and it just continues to add, and so we just continue to do it and continue to have that courage and faith to be, and know that I have the capabilities, and know when I need that support. So thank you.
Thank you, Charmaine. Appreciate seeing you this morning. I think Kristen is up next.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Kristen Herbert. I use she, her pronouns. I am mixed heritage, white, and Latina. I have invisible disabilities. The primary one that I have is what's actually called mast cell activation syndrome, which most people would understand to connect more closely with something like multiple chemical sensitivity. It's a condition where I am greatly affected by everything in the world that I come in contact with. You know, chemicals are not just like man-made things, it's also the natural stuff that exists in the world. So when I thought about the National Disability Employment Awareness Month theme this year, which is increasing access and opportunity, it was a bittersweet kind of feeling for me, because I've had a very mixed experience with Multnomah County. I've had some people that I had thought have been really great and supportive. Ben, Commissioner Marion, you know, so like my original branch supervisor when I started with the county was amazing. My first, I was really just encouraged, honestly, to not disclose about my disability originally when I started my job by people in my life. And I had to disclose. I had to disclose in order to, because there was a carpeting project that was done, and it actually caused me to have a really severe reaction, and I couldn't be in the building for 4 months. But what happened for me was once HR got involved in the process of doing the accommodation and everything, it became really, it was a lot. I don't know how else to call it. I felt there was a lot of process all the way through where I was defending myself and having to prove myself in a lot of ways. I'm sorry, my video cut. But yeah, when I think about increasing access and opportunity, for me, the big thing that I think about is culture, and creating a culture that's inclusive, that's embracing of people. Like I've said, there have been people that I have connected with at Multnomah County that I felt really encouraged by, that have really given me hope for where we're going and what we're doing. IDEA has been great, and I think without them, I may have left a long time ago. But yeah, so I guess like the big thing for me is when we look at 2020 and we look at all of this, just what, like, I don't have words for it that's happened. But it also gives us this great time to stop and to reflect and to really, it gives us the ability for this great reset. And I guess for me, my big thought and encouragement with that would be to really look at, how it is that we can, as it says, increase access and opportunities for those of us with disabilities. We found ways that we can work around almost anything. And so my hope is just that as the world returns to whatever any sort of like new normal becomes, that we remember that we have these skills and we have these abilities, and if we use them and we employ them, we can really just embrace the perspectives and the skills and talents that those of us with disabilities have that we might not have been able to expressed so much in the future or in the past when we've had barriers that have been in our way. So yeah, I guess that's kind of everything that I had, and I wanted to say thank you for letting me speak. I believe Diana comes up next, so thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. And yes, Diana, you are next.
Good morning. My name is Diana Grapasano, and I use she, her pronouns. I work in IT, and I spend a lot of time working on digital accessibility. So what is digital accessibility? It's making sure that we design electronic communications to be usable by people of all abilities. It covers everything from websites and documents to videos and software applications. If there's a silver lining to the current COVID crisis, it's that our new remote work environment has shone a light on a number of accessibility barriers, and even people without disabilities are more aware of the obstacles. I'd like to share one example with you. It was March of 2020. The pandemic had just begun and we were suddenly all working from home. A colleague on my team volunteered to help support the county's response to the pandemic, but in order to begin, she needed her manager to complete an approval form. So she said, hey, Chris Clancy, can you please submit this form? Now, my boss is an IT manager. He's more technologically savvy than most people, and he doesn't have disabilities. And even still, Chris couldn't complete the form. Why not? Because it couldn't be filled out electronically, and Chris doesn't own a printer. So a form that has to be completed and signed by hand requires a printer, ink, paper, and ability to hand sign and vision. Even if Chris had ordered a printer and supplies online, waited for them to come, printed the form, and completed it by hand, in order to submit it, he'd still need either a scanner if an image of the signature was acceptable, or if not, he'd need an envelope, a stamp, the ability to get envelopes and stamps, and the ability to get to a post office or mailbox. If you can appreciate the barrier this one form created for one employee without disabilities, imagine what it would have been like for an employee who is blind. The county has thousands of documents, many of which are required to access processes, crucial information, and services. Here are just 3 examples, and I'd like to preface this by saying this is just the tip of the iceberg, and I have no intention, I don't mean to like point fingers with these. These are just examples. We are all guilty, and there are documents coming out of every department that are not accessible. But here are the 3 examples. Administrative Procedure DEI-1 is the county's non-discrimination policy. It is an image-only PDF, and it is completely unreadable by employees who are blind or require screen readers. Our birth certificate order form is completely unusable by screen reader users and keyboard-only users. Our required annual privacy refresher training video is not usable by employees who are blind or deaf. For years, we've said we want our workplace and our communications to be accessible and inclusive for people who are blind, deaf, or have other disabilities, but we haven't yet done the work to make that happen. We have a language communication and cultural access policy that states all websites and internet communications are accessible to individuals with vision and hearing impairments, but we have substantial barriers in every department of the county. What we really need is the policy to be expanded to require specific accessibility standards for digital content. We need enforcement of the policy, and we need training so that everybody who produces content can learn what they need to do, how to do it, and why. Although I didn't have time today to provide you with a full report on digital accessibility at Multnomah County, if you are interested and want to learn more, I would be very happy to share a brief slide presentation with you another time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Diana. Is Mike on the call?
Yes, I am. Good morning. Thanks, Chair Kafori.
Good morning.
My name is Mike DeBlasi. I'm an architect working as a project manager for Facilities and Property Management Division. I'm also the IDEA ERG Communications Coordinator. Much of the work that I have done with facilities over the last 10 years has focused on providing accessibility to our buildings. My primary focus has been to make sure that we are creating an accessible route from the public, for the public to enter and use our buildings. In addition to an accessible route, I also make sure that we are considering how a person with a disability is able to fully utilize the services of the building, including restrooms and customer service counters. While much of my work has focused on increasing access for the public, I have also tried to ensure that access is an important consideration in areas primarily used by county employees. An example of this is the recent remodel of the Walnut Park dental reception area. The reception area currently is able to provide a lower counter to serve patrons using a mobility device. The lower counter extends into the staff area, which also provides an accessible counter for an employee using a mobility device. A big part of my role at the county is to educate staff on the importance of providing accessible work areas. While they may not currently have a staff person needing that accommodation, it is quite possible that that accessibility will be needed in the future. By considering how we make our buildings more accessible, we can increase accessibility and opportunity for all. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And now I think we have Jill. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Chair Kafori and Commissioners. Thank you for having us here today. And I'm Jill Jesse. I am an IDM member. I work for Health Department's Behavioral Health Division as an administrative analyst, and I use she, her pronouns. I've been involved with IDF for about the last 4 years, and I want to take this time to really thank you for your continued support of our employees here at Multnomah County that experience challenges in their work due to disabilities that they have in their lives, and for working to make it a more welcoming, making Multnomah County a more welcoming and accessible employer for staff with disabilities. So I guess I just read the proclamation. So today before the Board of County Commissioners for Multnomah County, proclaiming October 2020 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in Multnomah County, Oregon. The Multnomah County Board of Commissioners finds approximately 42 million people in the United States have some sort of disability. This represents our nation's largest, most inclusive, and most diverse minority group. All ages, genders, religions, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and socioeconomic levels are represented. Disability is a natural part of human experience, and people with disabilities are people first who happen to have a disability. National Disability Employment Awareness Month is an annual campaign that takes place each October to celebrate the contributions of workers with disabilities and educates about the value of a workforce inclusive of their skills and talents. The 2020 National Disability Employment Awareness Month theme is increasing access and opportunity. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, Office of Disability Employment Policy, the July 2020 unemployment rate for people with a disability was 14.8% compared to 10.4% for those without a disability. People with a disability bring with them to their workplace a wealth of lived experience that has required flexibility and tenacity of spirit because they encounter daily barriers in a society that has been designed for people with ability privilege. At Multnomah County, we commit to providing a workplace that embraces a philosophy of accepting the whole person of each of our staff and that fosters a sense of safety, trust, and belonging for employees with disabilities. Multnomah County recognizes that accessibility touches all aspects of employees' work lives, not just physical barriers. This includes our norms and attitudes, communications, and sense of belonging. Multnomah County commits to actively engage in outreach and recruitment efforts with our community members with disabilities and show that we are a desirable place of employment for individuals with disabilities. Multnomah County affirms its commitment to fostering an inclusive work environment and recognizes the many contributions of individuals with disabilities. The Multnomah County Board of Commissioners proclaims the month of October 2020 as National Disability Employment Awareness Month in Multnomah County, Oregon. We celebrate and recognize the significant contributions of people with disabilities to the workforce and to the community, and invite other organizations to do the same.
Thanks, Jill. Good to see you this morning. I will now call on commissioners to see if there's questions or comments, and we're going to start with Commissioner Myron.
I think I'm on. Thank you. Thank you all so much for bringing this proclamation forward. I was so just honored and pleased to sponsor it and work with the IDEA ERG to bring this forward. Thank you to Ben for kicking this off and for all the support and engagement that you've provided to the IDEA ERG and just also to me. And, whenever I have questions and asking about any of this, you're right there and respond. And it's just so wonderful to see all of you today. I keep wanting to see all of you here today, but you are not here in my kitchen. But to see all of you wherever you are, and hear your stories and hear about the work that you've been doing. In particular, I just want to say a special thank you to Charmaine for your courage and vulnerability and strength in coming forward and sharing your experience and your family's story, and that incredible photo. Photos truly do speak 1,000 words, and it says so much. Your words really resonated deeply, and your ability to come forward and do this is so valuable to others. And I just deeply appreciate it because I know so many are suffering, and with all the challenges right now, things that you feel might have been invisible or that you could cope with somehow, like it's just laying a lot bare. And so I just so appreciate that. And Kristen, it is wonderful to see you today. And I know mast cells, I see people in the emergency department suffering from mast cell activation, and I know the mast cells mediate immune and allergic responses. And I do have to say that carpet scenario does sound truly just horrifying. I really appreciate your vulnerability in coming forward and just your honesty and thoughtfulness and encouragement and resilience, and the efforts you've made to increase access and opportunities for all people with disabilities. As I said, I think this year is especially as important as we think of all the ways that the COVID pandemic has changed our lives and our work. So often we think of accessibility in terms of the physical barriers and accommodations, which are so important. And thank you, Mike, for talking about that accessibility. As we move into the virtual world, it's critical that we be mindful of additional barriers and challenges and promote accessibility for employees and members of the public. Your examples, Diana, some of which may seem like, oh, a form, what difference does a form make? Those are not trivial. They are truly profound, and there are really important opportunities right now, as we always talk about in this board, for how we can do things better. So I was really happy to work with IDEA and again this year to support this proclamation and make time to acknowledge and celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. IDEA has been an incredible source of leadership and employee voice in this, and you are all truly continue to be an inspiration to me. Thank you.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Commissioner Myron, for bringing the proclamation forward. Thank you to IDEA for all the work you've done on this, and Ben, and to those of you who've come here this morning to testify. You know, I so appreciate what you do for county employees in terms of elevating these issues, your courage in asking for what you need. I was so moved, Charmaine, by what you said about that, about how hard it is to really say, here's what I'm experiencing and here's what I need. And by your asking for what you need, you make it possible for others to ask for what they need and for us to understand and try to meet those needs. I too really appreciated your sharing your family with me. That was a wonderful photograph, and appreciated the analogy that you were making between how we support family members and how we should support the people that we work with, our employees, that we wrap around with support to allow them to be their best selves, to allow them to be as successful and thrive as much as they possibly can. And I too was really, really moved by that. I also, I was struck by the phrase in the proclamation about the flexibility and tenacity of spirit that people with experiencing disabilities must exhibit, must just draw out of themselves. And each and every one of you has shown that flexibility and tenacity of spirit. And I so appreciate that. We've all talked about how COVID gives us an opportunity. And, I think we talked about this at the previous proclamation around recognizing people with disabilities, that there is the possibility for a culture shift, that rather than asking what's difficult about the accommodation that people need, to assume that we can make the accommodation and just sort of shift the burden of what's required. Say, yes, we think we can do it. We've got here's these challenges. Let's deal with those, but we think we can do it, and start from that place rather than from the place, Kristen, that you described of having to really defend every accommodation that you're asking for. So I hope that is the trajectory that we're on. I think we're all committed to being on that trajectory. Diana, before I close, I want to say I would be interested in your presentation. I agree with Commissioner Myron. Those are profound challenges. It's not just a form, and I appreciate the way you walk through every step that's required to complete and send in one of those forms. And I'd be very interested in the presentation. So thank you all so much. Appreciate everything that you do to make this a better workplace and a better county.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to first thank IDEA and Ben and all the work that goes into advocating for our employees every day. And I think it's so wonderful that that we have this proclamation to be able to shine a light on the experience of employees at Multnomah County. And I appreciate Commissioner Myron for bringing this proclamation forward and sponsoring this proclamation. It's so important that we really have an honest look about the experience of employees here at Multnomah County, and also acknowledge all of the contributions of employees experiencing disabilities. And I appreciate all the stories, Charmaine. Your story was so touching, and I also loved the picture that shows, how we get our strength and how we find our resilience, and how we need to and should expect that have that kind of support in our workplaces as well. Kristen, I appreciate your sharing your experience. And especially because it was, both positive experiences and more negative experiences, and showing us how we have to grow, and how there's more work to do to really make sure that we're doing right by our employees. And Diana, your presentation was so interesting to me because, or your talking points, because when I think of how we're working right now in light of COVID, how we're working from home, I think of it as really showing how much more flexible our workplace accommodations can be for people. Like if they, if they find, it's hard to be in the workplace, because, like for instance, like sensitivity to sense, working from home might be an option for you, right? But I really appreciate you really showing that, because we're so dependent now on technology and digital means, like there are also things that we have to put in place to make sure that works well for employees too. And I am also interested in in seeing your presentation and really having some concrete things that we can do to improve in that area. And Mike and Jill, I appreciate your being here and sharing your experiences. Jill, I know you've shared your stories in previous years, and I appreciate that. So I think that this is, how we can really make sure we are being proactive and being specific in how we need to help people, having, like, Diana, how you were saying, specific accessibility standards, like, and being more concrete. I think that's something we can all learn about and do more to put into place. And I do appreciate the spirit of this proclamation as well. Increasing access and opportunity, because that's what we're here about for, I think, all of our employees and all people in Multnomah County, and be able to focus on it in this way with people experiencing disabilities is really, really wonderful. So thank you so much.
Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Myron, for bringing this forward. Thank you, Ben, and all the work of IDEA. Charmaine, I really appreciated your sharing your lived experience, and I liked how you talked about that you have had to create your own environment to be successful, and sharing your lived experience with us and with others is what allows your story and to be visible. And I think we have to start talking at greater depth about the challenges and the issues that so many of our community members experience, and especially the ones that are not visible, that are not apparent. Kristen, I really appreciate you sharing your story. I always learn so much from our employees, and hearing your story about having a sensitivity to the carpeting, that was something that may have never registered with me until I heard you share about how it affected you. So we have absolutely got to do a better job of increasing access and opportunities for people. And I think, as has been said, is that, in the past, we would kind of have these general conversations about, well, can an employee work from home and what the challenges and barriers are. But then come COVID, we seem to have overcome those barriers because we had no choice. So I do think that if there is a will, there is a way. And Diana, thank you for your work on the digital accessibility. As I get older, I am experiencing a more loss of hearing. And so for me, the closed caption is really, really important. And so I really appreciate, and I know we have our closed captioner online who does a tremendous job. So big shout out. I haven't met you, but you're doing a great job, and I appreciate your work. And Mike, access to the buildings absolutely is important. And Jill, thank you so much for always being willing to share your story. So I'm so grateful that you continue to educate us and to push us forward and to challenge us to do better, because we must. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, Charmaine, and Kristen, Diana, Mike, and Jill, for your time today. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your work. Like the other commissioners have said, I really want to thank the IDEA ERG for the advocacy and the support work that you do. It's so important to make sure that the contributions, voices, and needs of employees with disabilities are lifted up in our workplace. And I also want to acknowledge the great job that IDEA does of advocating for the diversity of experiences among employees with disabilities. As we've heard today from many of you, not all disabilities are visible. So the work that IDEA does to make sure that employees who come to work with invisible disabilities aren't overlooked, that work is critical. I also want to thank our support departments like ODE, IT, and facilities for working hard to ensure that all employees have the accommodations they need to thrive and serve our community. And as Diana talked about, this work is never done. There are as much work that has been done, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I got to say that it feels pretty appropriate that it's a milestone year for both NDEA month and the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's an opportunity not just to reflect and to celebrate the progress that the county and our country has made, but also to acknowledge that we cannot rest on our laurels. Multnomah County is striving to be an employer that sees and treats people with disabilities as the talented, skilled people that we know they are, and to make it as easy as possible for them to be and to bring their full selves to work every day. That commitment takes real work, and it takes sufficient resources and a shared commitment to that vision. I know that Multnomah County employees with disabilities still all too often experience the workplace differently from their peers who do not have disabilities. And as long as that disparity exists, the county has work to do. You can fully count on me and every member of this Board of County Commission to fully celebrate and support the work that you're doing. And now, Marina, would you please take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Myron?
Aye.
Commissioner Jayapal?
Aye.
Commissioner Vega-Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Stegman?
Aye.
Chair Kafori?
Aye. The proclamation is adopted. Yay. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming today. We've now come to the end of our board meeting, and we now have time for board comments on non-agenda items. We're going to start with Commissioner Stegman.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to remind folks, if you weren't aware, Human Solutions is holding a fundraiser tonight, and I believe that several of my fellow commissioners are also co-sponsors or hosts along with me. And what's really exciting is that they are going to have a conversation with Ibram Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist. This is a free event. Of course, I'm sure that Human Solutions could use support. It's tonight at 6:30, and Commissioner Joanne Hardesty will also be on that panel. So I hope everyone can join us.
Thank you. Commissioner Vega-Peterson.
Thanks, Chair. I don't have anything this week.
Commissioner Jayapal.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to mention that there are a couple of free COVID testing events, community testing events this weekend at Rockwood and in the Cully neighborhood at Hacienda and Las Adelitas, and encourage anybody who's interested in those to check out the Health Department's website for more details. Yeah, that's it.
Commissioner Myron.
Nothing for me today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks all for coming today. And that concludes today's board meeting. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.